I'll just start by saying, although I understand what Deputy Cairns means by she would have hoped that this bill wouldn't be before the House, and that this is not something we wish to be facing. I think, given that I'm a good bit older than Deputy Cairns and been through a life of political activism, all I can say is get used to it. Every time we make one step forward, they will try and grab 2 steps backwards. And this is not the first time I've seen women's gains in this country being chipped away at and an attempt to erode it. I've seen the same with workers' rights, with water charges, with very many campaigns that we have fought on behalf of communities, on behalf of the oppressed, and in particular on behalf of women, because we do have a horrible legacy in this country of the oppression of women. And really what this bill smacks of is an attempt to roll back on the gains of the Repeal the Eighth movement. And people shouldn't forget how earth-shattering that movement and that outcome of the referendum was. Absolutely groundbreaking stuff in terms of the history of this country and the shape of the future. And how it happened was through people power, and in particular through the massive determination of young women all over the country to see their rights attained and not to have to live in the dark atmosphere that their mothers and sisters and all the rest of it had to live and grow up in and be sexually active in and be potential mothers in, or not at all. And that is why I think what's happening here today is straight out of the playbook of American fundamentalism. And it's interesting that not that long ago, there was a bill brought in Texas which was based around, and one of the most honest speakers here today actually was Deputy Danny Healy-Rae, because several times he mentioned the heartbeat and the heartbeat and the heartbeat. And there is a piece of legislation in Texas known as the heartbeat legislation, which basically bans abortion once a heartbeat can be detected in a fetus. 6 weeks. Most of us wouldn't know we were pregnant at 6 weeks. And yet the Texas legislation, which they've been chipping away at for decades since the Roe versus Wade judgment, what that does is it makes it possible for any citizen to sue another citizen for helping a woman to procure abortion. Really dark ages stuff, and this is in a country where abortion was once upon a time available and once upon a time part of the health service. So chipping away at women's rights is something we can expect over the next period. But I read back last night on the transcript from the debate here when the group of deputies who are now putting this motion today also supported an amendment when we were trying to frame the legislation on the termination, the regulations around the terminations of pregnancy. And it's carbon copy stuff, absolutely carbon copy. There's nothing any different. And I, for one, am not surprised that this bill is before the House. I'll expect it to come before the House again whenever the period of time allows it, or something similar to it. Because what it's trying to do is to roll back on the rights that women have won, that were fought for a long period of time, has been said by other deputies, by spreading misinformation, by spreading doubt, and hoping to create hoops and loops and jumps that women will have to go through before they can access abortion. They can't ban it outright, they can't object to it outright, but they'll try and chip away. The kind of Ireland that would bring us back to is the kind of Ireland that saw mother and baby homes, Magdalen laundry, symphysiotomy, women being absolutely ignored in terms of their medical needs. And we are not, as TDs, in a position to pass laws that say medical procedures require anaesthesia, or they don't. Abortion care should be a normal part of medicine in this country and treated in the same way as other procedures are. When doctors need them to be administered, and they administer them. And it's precisely this type of right-wing, religiously motivated political interference that we've all become familiar with the alphabet of cases A, B, C, X, Y. We've known how the sort of pitiless regime that was imposed on women in the past. In relation to one thing I should welcome is the defeat of the DUP bill in Stormont last night, and I do welcome the fact that Sinn Féin changed their position and voted against that bill. But again, it has to be said, that was because of the pressure of people power and the activism of young women across Northern Ireland. I do want to make a very clear point about why we take up these moral attitudes about pregnancy, about reproduction, about women. And I think it's pretty shameful in a country that has 2,500 children who will sleep in homeless accommodation tonight, over 2,000 children in direct provision, and we know for sure that that affects their ability to live a happy life. It affects their mental health growing up in those circumstances. These are born children. They are walking, they are thinking, they are breathing, they are living. And I wish I could hear the deputies kick up the same amount of fuss as regularly as they do both inside and outside this House about those that are born, rather than those who have not yet been born and those who are being, if you like, there's the choice of the woman involved, which is always totally ignored. So we can expect more of this. And we are having protests outside abortion clinics and GP centres where abortions are being delivered. That is the fundamentalist view. What we need to do is to look forward to the review of the termination of pregnancy regulations and to ensure that the 3-day barrier is removed and that we put an end to 10% of GPs providing services.